5, 4.
Very warm welcome to this session 6, and we are doing calculus this week. So well done you for turning up, putting in the time. Very impressive. Let's just click on. So yeah, looking at the feedback, if you remember the previous week, I'd said there was a bit of a sort of U-shape on the clarity. This week it was much better grouped and looks generally good. Challenge 6.3, pace 5.5. Clarity 7. No one had an opinion on whether they'd like a Q&A session, so I'll hold off on that one for the time being. And the one comment was the logical questions for this person were harder than the questions from other sessions, but maybe I just don't understand logic, says the person. All these things, they get easier with practice, and particularly maths is that strange beast that you have to grapple with it and keep the faith whilst you're trying to get your head around it, and then as it starts to click, it suddenly your performance suddenly jumps up. It's not like history, which just ramps up gradually as you learn more about the monarchs of England or whatever, or monarchs of the UK, I guess. Anyhow, that's a question for a different thing. Anyhow, I got this little clip of from Lewis Carroll, so it's Tweedledum and Tweedledee, so about logic. That's the only link I've got. Contrariwise, continue Tweedledee. If it was so, it might be. If it were so, it would be. And as it isn't, it ain't. That's logic. So Lewis Carroll himself is very keen on logic. So if you like logic puzzles, you can Google Lewis Carroll logic puzzles and you'll find some good ones along there. Anyhow, tonight is calculus, and what I thought this week it'd be worth seeing, because you know that we're following the AS spec for the up and coming competition, and I just wanted to say that in terms of content it is quite constrained. I mean, not say it's easy, but the sort of things we be looking at: first derivatives, the idea that the derivative is the same as the gradient, second derivatives. And in terms of differentiating, we're just looking at differentiating x to the n, where n is some rational, so an integer or a fraction, and then sort of combinations. So you could have 5x squared plus 3x plus 2, something like that would ask to differentiate. That would be fine. And the ability to find stationary points, tangents and normal. So we'll see a bit of that tonight. Integration, the fact it's reverse of differentiation, and how you integrate things like x to the n, except for n being -1, and this idea of integration as area. So that's what on the menu. Other thing I should remind you is that we have Owen on the chat again. So if at any stage you want to put something into the chat, that's great, and Owen can draw my attention to it. Remember that we've got a lag of between 10 and 30 seconds, so it won't be instant, but there we go. So what about today then? So here is the first question. Cubic has equation y equals x cubed plus ax squared plus bx plus c for some constants ABC. Turning points 1, 2 and 3d for some value of d. What is the value of d? Now, what I said in my comments, if I had there was only one obvious approach that I could think of. Can you think of the one I'm thinking of? So this is a moment to type something in the chat and let's see if what would you suggest to someone if you could delegate this task to someone else? What would you suggest they look at? So I'm going to just leave us 20 seconds or so we can catch up, but then I will ask Owen what he's got something in the chat. So what idea, what basic idea are we going to try to use? And it's not going to be a shock because it is the theme of tonight. what would you play? Owen, have we got anything come through?
Nothing just of yet. A question unrelated. So I'll reply to that as soon as I find that out. Whoever asked that, but no, nothing apart from that.
Okay. I'm not sure if students or learners or whatever. What would you do on this one? How would you? What is the thing you do for finding the turning points? As Princess Leia says, "Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope." I'm hoping this will flush out those responses. How would you help the person who has to face this question? Any suggestions come in?
Yeah, we've had one person saying differentiate and insert the coordinates 1, 2.
Fantastic. Whoever that person is, well done you. That looks to me, I can't think of any other approach. So yeah, differentiate and then put in the coordinates, and you're going to get some conditions in terms of A, B, C, and hence find D. So give it a go. Give it a go. I will give you I don't know. Maybe I'll give you shall I give you 2, 3? Let me give you 3 minutes. 3 minutes, and we'll see what fruit that bears. And if you get an answer, pop it in the chat. As ever, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's good just to pop an answer in, and that will actually also help me gauge how it's going for people. I know I will just see the early wave, and doesn't mean everyone's got it, but at least I shouldn't really give you answers until someone's put something in, even if it's just to say I don't know. That's a minute and a half. Got another minute and a half coming up, and more time if you're closing and want just a bit of an extension.
I've had one person asking for a little bit more extra time, so maybe 30 seconds or a minute.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will accept. So that's into the last 30 seconds. Let me give you a minute more. That's really helpful. As I say, in a classroom setting, it would be much easier to work out how people are, but it's fun getting it to work out, and it's not easy. So that's 3 minutes. I'll give you add another minute, and again, if you want to say just a bit more time, that's fine as well. We'll do that.
We also had someone asking if they should write dy over dx or y.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so you could either write y dashed or dy or dx. They're exactly equivalent. They're just notation. So use whichever one you like. In this particular question, as it's multiple choice, they'll only ever see your answer, so it wouldn't apply. But in general, use which one you find handier. I use both and use them differently in different situations. I can, in the interlude or at the end, I can explain why I like particular notations in different circumstances. But yeah. Okay, so that's coming to the end of the 4th minute. Has anyone managed to come up with an answer or close it down, or just want to have a guess, or provide any information you've managed to get out so far? Or you can say, give me more time.
I'll give it another 5 seconds just in case, but yeah, we've had a few answers already.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, as I say, I don't want to It is hard to pace, and it is frustrating if just as you're converging, someone tells you what the answer. But actually, the key thing is just that initial getting going, getting thinking about it, because if you can get a way into the problem, then the actual calculations, that's something that you do know how to do, and obviously you can practice and get better at. But the thing which is sometimes problematic is actually getting started at all. Okay, well, I'm going to let's see, what did anyone think on this? As I say, all ideas valid. It's good to have an answer is better than no answer. Definitely, you've got a 1 in 5 chance if you pluck one out of the air. So what answers did anyone reckon?
Yep. So everyone who answered answered C.
C. Oh, okay. Well, have I made it? Okay, I wasn't expecting C. I might have made a mistake then. I hope I haven't. It's bad if I have. Let's see. Okay, let's see what I thought. Okay, so I differentiated 3x squared 2ax plus b, and then we like was suggested, we need to find out that we're looking for turning points, aren't we? So if we evaluate the derivative at 1, we know the value of the gradient is 0. That's what it's saying. So here we go. Y dashed is this expression. So y dashed of 1 means we substitute 1 in wherever x is. We get 3 plus 2a plus b. And we know, because that's a stationary point, that should be 0. So that's our first equation. Similarly, we know there's a stationary point if we substitute 3 in for x here. So where there's an x, if we put a 3 in, then again, we should get a stationary point. So, so x squared is 9 times 3 is 27. And then we've got 2 times x is 6. So 6a plus b is 0. Then, okay, we want to solve them simultaneously. Subtracting one from the other is a good way to eliminate. And actually, looking at the setup here, if we subtract the first one from the second one, then the b's are going to cancel, and we will get sort of 4a, and we will get plus 24. So hopefully that's what I've got. 24 plus 4a is 0. So I've subtracted the first from the second, and that should give me, let me move that out of the way, a is going to be minus 6 in that case, and in that case then we've gone back and we've said, okay, if a is minus 6 in here, then that's going to be minus 12, plus 3 is minus 9. What would we need to add to minus 9 to make 0? B would be equal to 9. So hopefully that's what you got as well. Or as I say, if you spot I've made a mistake at any point, do flag it up. Okay, so now we need to find D, but we haven't got everything we need because we've found what A and B are. We need to find out C. But the good thing they've told us is that at this stationary point, if we put 1 in for x into y, this thing up here, then we should get an answer too. So let's do that. Oh, actually, before I do that, always good simultaneous equations, just check that you haven't made a mistake. So if you've substituted into 1 to get the answer, just check that they both work in the last one. So 27 plus 6 times minus 6 minus 36 plus 9. If we pop that in, that's good. So as mathematicians, or perhaps I'm speaking for myself, I often make mistakes. I try wherever possible to check so that I can pick them up. Okay, and I try always to make fewer. So here we go. We said, the thing I just said was that if we put 1 in for y, we're going to get 1 cubed, 6 times 1 squared, that was minus 6, plus 9 times 1 plus c. So putting that together, we've got 10 minus 6 is 4. And then if we subtract the 4 from both sides, we get c is minus 2. So c is minus 2. We've got all the bits we need now, and once we've got that, we can just pop 3 in. So that's going to give us 27 minus 6 times 9. So actually, let's do all the positive bits first. So 27, 9 times 3 is also 27. So that's 54. 6 times 9 is 54 as well. So that cancels out. So that does give -2. OK, so I think the answer is B. Now, people who've got answer C, as I say, it's much better to have an answer than no answer. So well done for doing that. As I went through, did you spot a mistake you've made, or do you conversely spot a mistake I have made? Either case, that would be very helpful if you can pop it in the chat. So have a look at that, just digest what I said there, and let us form this community of learning where we see the way of maths. In this case, there is only one answer, which is true. Now, have I made the slip, or did you make a slip that you spotted going through there? So anything in the chat, anyone voting one way or the other?
Again, usual delay, so nothing just yet. But so I'm hoping that it's well, obviously not hoping. I hope that there's no mistakes anywhere, but that is no issues at all.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in this slightly selfish way. I'm hoping it's you have made the mistake of this to my students, but I know that I am not invulnerable to making mistakes. So if you can confirm one way or the other, okay. Do you believe what I've written here, or is there some obvious flaw staring at us?
We've just had someone coming in now saying that wouldn't C be -4?
Wouldn't C be -4? Let us just check that. That's a good call. So what did we say? We said we'd got 10 minus 6, so that's +4 on this side. So we've got +4. Maybe I get my pen and I can annotate it. What I think is true. Let's get rid of that. Does that do? What do I get rid of? Oh, bother. I thought. So pointer options, let's go for a pen, and let's go for a color. Pointer options, let's go for an ink color. What do we reckon? Blues. Good. Okay, so what I think when we're checking it here, have we got, okay, we have got a pen. Good. Okay, so I reckon that you've got 1 minus 6 plus 9, so that's 10 minus 6, that you've got 4 plus C is equal to 2, and you subtract the 4 from both sides to give you the -2. So that's where I think C equals -2 comes from. But as I say, it's always very welcome for you to ask me to check something. I'll put it through. So have we got anyone saying either they think this is have a vote. Do you think my answer is correct? That'd be good.
Still nothing just yet.
No. Okay. Well, anyhow, what you can pop that in. I'm going to move on. I will check the solution in the solutions afterwards just to check I have got that right. I hope I have. Anyhow, the approach you suggested is definitely the one to use. But let us move on then. If we move on to the next one, and I want to get rid of my. Let's go back to a pointer options. Go to a laser pointer, I guess. Okay, here we go. Now this has got a lot of words. I've gone for a quite a meaty question here. So the line L has equation y is equal to C minus mx. So that's slightly unusual because normally we talk about mx plus c, but they've just made written it as minus mx, and they've said m is greater than 0. So okay, fair dues. C is also greater than 0. So what that means is it hits the y-axis above the origin, passes through the point AB, cuts the axes at P and Q. A, B, P, Q are all positive. Find P and Q in terms of A, B and M. Then it starts talking about other things. So what we have to do here is draw a diagram and try to work out what it is talking about. Okay, so that is your mission. Draw a diagram of this and try to work out what is it talking about. That's what we're trying to do often at the start of a question, just to get our head around it, and particularly when there's a lot of words like this. So let me give you a minute or so to draw your own diagrams. Okay, so you've had about a minute. Hopefully you've got something. This is my diagram, which hopefully captures the key features. So we've got this line here, which is y is equal to c minus mx. So m is positive, so we're actually going to be sloping down. As I said, we cross at 0c, and actually 0c is the same as q, which has got coordinate 0q, and the crossing point here on the x-axis has got x is equal to p and the value 0. So we've got this line crossing both axes going through AB, and I'll just sort of mark that on because I wanted to. Then it says find P and Q in terms of A, B and M. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this, so choose which one you would like. Have a go at that. Can you find what P, Q are in terms of A, B and M? So let me give you a couple of minutes and you can type it in. So if you've managed to get anything for either P or Q, do pop it into the chat. Or if you want more time, do say that as well. Or if you just want to see a way of doing it, then we'll move on to that. Okay, Owen, has anyone been brave enough to type something in?
Yep, we just had an answer coming in now.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to share that now or after.
Yeah, no, that'd be, yeah, let's hear what someone someone thinks
Sure.
that's really
So we've
good.
got Q equals B plus MA and P equals B over M plus A.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Now, there are two ways of doing it, and they're both good, though one is slightly easier than the other, I think. So one is to take this line. As we've said, we've worked out that C is got to be equal to Q, and then we can think about use this line to solve our answers. We can also actually just look at the diagram, and I'll explain what I mean. We know what this slope is gradient m, and therefore we know that if we had x equals a, if we go a this way, the amount it's going to increase there is a times m. So the height here when we're at a is b, and we've gone back and we've added am to it to get there. So just as the person, well done, whoever typed that in, said q is b plus am. That's true. Similarly, if we're thinking about what about as we start here, then the x coordinate at r is a, and we have to, we've again got a line which is every bit we go across is going down. The slope is going down m. So how much, basically we want to get rid of the height of b. So if we went across b over m, that would enable us to go down by that amount. So if we've gone this distance b over m and we multiply that by m, that is the change. We've dropped from b down to 0. So that was a way of thinking about it. Yeah, have a vote. Do you do this is again interested in your feedback. Do you prefer the thinking about it via the line, or do you prefer thinking about it via the line equation, or thinking about it what the slope of m is? That either of those is good, and you may have your own way. So I'm just interested in your views. There's no wrong or right answer there. So do you prefer thinking about the slope or think about the line equation? Either. Any votes in Owen? Oh.
Nothing just yet, no.
No. Okay. Well, I would be interested in your views. So did that explanation make sense? Just thinking about the fact that the slope of this line is m. So if we move across a, the increase will be am going this way. And similarly, if we want it to drop by b, then we want to go b over m across to get that decrease of m. But you may say, oh, that's a bit confusing. I prefer it the other way. Okay, so we've done what they said. We have got P and Q in terms of A, B, and M. So let's see what they ask us to do. Oh, okay, I did make a point here. Interestingly, it's worth noticing patterns because they sometimes are helpful. So we noticed that actually if we multiplied P by M, you would get AM and you would get B. So Q is the same as P times M. But actually that isn't quite as surprising as I initially thought, because if you've got this this length here, then as we go through a length that's P, then how much will Q change by, given this has got a gradient minus N? As we go back through P, this is going to increase by P times M, because that's what gradient M means, or gradient minus M means in this particular case. So anyhow, worth spotting, and it will actually come in handy later. So let us though, oh gosh, I didn't like that. Let's try the next thing. Okay, so what does it say next? It says as L varies, so this line is moving, R is remaining fixed, so that means we're actually sort of pivoting the line about R. Show that the minimum value of the sum of the distances from P and Q to the origin, so we get the distance of Q to the origin, which is just little q, and the distance of P to the origin, which is just little p, so p plus q, show that the minimum value is a to the half plus b to the half all squared. And then it's going to ask us to do something else. Now, again, we're thinking, what does minimum value make us think? Well, what it makes me think, so first of all, I've written up what p plus q is. So just as someone said, p is a plus bm, b over m rather, and q is b plus am. This is something we need to minimize. The variable we're changing is m. So the point A and B are fixed. We're varying m. What do we think about? Now, what I said, s is a function of m, which varies. To minimize it, we think calculus. It's always worth, particularly in these sort of problems, to just pause before we leap in to think, is there something else going on here? And if we run into heavy weather, we also reassess. But this doesn't seem to be an obvious thing to do. So, okay, here is the question. Can you have a go at using your calculus to find what is the minimum value of p plus q? So have a go at that exercise, more than that problem. I'll give you several minutes. As ever, if you've got any queries, do ask and check, and we can go through them. So you've got a function s, which is a function of m. The gradient is the thing that we're varying. Normally we think of varying something like x and differentiate. Here you're going to have to differentiate with respect to m and find out what is the minimum and then substitute it back in. And what we're hoping we'll get out is this expression that they've told us, root of a plus root of b all squared. So let me give you 3 minutes from here, and as ever, I'll ask you at 2.5 if you want to have a bit of extra time. If you've managed to do it, just say so, and we can think about moving on. If you'd like a bit more time from here, do say I'd like a minute more or so, and we'll do that. Have we got any activity over the airways? Anyone done it or more timing?
I just had one answer in coming in now, so I'm assuming it's all okay in terms of timing.
Okay, well done. That's great. To whoever's popped that in. Let me I'll just give let's say you are you're the leader, so I'm going to allow people just a little bit more time to see if they can close it out, and then we'll have a go. So I'll give you. Okay, let me talk about it then. So this is our expression. I've just moved the terms involving m to the end because when we differentiate a and b, they're going to disappear. When we differentiate am, we lose the m. If you remember, b divided by m, the key thing to remember is m is the same as b 1 over m is the same to m to the minus 1. So when we differentiate, we get minus m to the minus 2, which I've put back in this form. So a minus b over m squared. That's the derivative. We want it to be 0, and in fact it says you may assume that any stationary values of these distances are minima. So there is a, when I said should we be using calculus, there's even another sort of hint here that sort of, if we're looking for stationary values, that's likely to be what we want. Here we go. So we're going to say, oh, s dashed is equal to 0, in which case a minus b over m squared is equal to 0, which we rearrange by how we want to do it. We perhaps put b over m squared on the other side by adding it to both sides, then multiply by m squared and divide by a. But this, so there are some steps in this little bit here that I haven't spelt out, but I am confident you'll be able to do that. Okay, m squared is b over a. In that case, that means oh, that's one click too many. That m is root of b over a. Okay, and then we just need to pop it back into s. So s is a plus b. A, where we have an m, we have put root b over a, and where we've divided by m, we're dividing by root b over a is the same as timesing by root a over b. So again, if you think I'm not so sure about that, just go and check the details, you're happy. Okay, and now these terms we can simplify a bit, because if this a, if we took it inside the square root, it would become an a squared. We're allowed to do that sort of thing, and in which case we would have root b times a. Similarly, if we take this b inside the square root, we get a b squared, which one of them cancels with the b, and again we get a root ab. So both these terms, the last two terms, are root ab. If we do that, so we've got a plus b plus 2 root ab, and this looks vaguely familiar. I mean, the good thing is they actually tell us what it should be. They've told us, but you've got, we may have seen before a squared plus b squared plus 2ab. This isn't quite that, because it's got 2 root ab, and it hasn't got a squared, it's got a, but a is root a squared and b is root b squared. So if you check the details, that the left hand side, or the middle here, is the expansion of what we've got in brackets. So what they say is true. It's good. We would expect it to be symmetrical in a and b, if you remember the diagram. Well, let's do. So that's what they asked us to do. Okay, so let's move on to the next bit. Now, so we've done this. It says, and find in a similar form the minimum distance between P and Q. So let's just go back and remember what we were talking about. So if I do G, let's go back to look at our picture. So we want to now, instead of minimizing this shape here where we add P to Q, we're actually minimizing the diagonal, the length of the hypotenuse. So we're going to be minimizing, given this P on the base and Q going up, we're minimizing the square root of P squared plus Q squared. So let's go back to where we were. That's the one. Okay, so we want to minimize square root of p squared plus q squared. That's Pythagoras. However, there is an important thing that is well worth knowing, that we could try minimizing this. We would need to know how to differentiate a function of a function, which you may or may not have done. It's certainly not on the AS syllabus, but you may have covered it. Okay, so even if we could do that, a much smarter thing to do is try to minimize d squared, because minimizing d squared also minimizes d. Okay, d is positive, d squared is positive. Minimizing d squared minimizes d, and we don't have to worry about the square root. So that is a general thing. If you ever find yourself minimizing the square root of something and think, oh, I need to use calculus, that's true, you need to use calculus, but you can just minimize the thing without the square root, and find what value would minimize it and then put it into the thing with the square root. So here we go. So we're going to instead minimize p squared plus q squared. We can now substitute these in. So where we've got p, we're going to put a plus b over m. And where we've got q, we're going to put b plus a over m. So if we pop those in, and I know that you could expand those, I will expand them for us. So this is the expression. Okay, so we're back to coming up to an audience participation moment, doing a bit of differentiation. This is what we're going to need to differentiate. So here we go. That's what we need to differentiate. Have a go and see what equation you get for m. I'll give you, a couple of minutes on that. Have a go, see what equation you get for m. Remember, you're differentiating with respect to m. Again, m is the our variable that we've. Okay, I'm hoping you've managed to differentiate that. So this is what I got. So again, a squared, a is a constant, b is a constant. Differentiating, they vanish. This one, we bring the 2 down and we get 2a squared m. 2ab m differentiated with respect to m. The m disappears. This is 2ab over m. That's what we saw last time. It becomes minus m squared. And something over m squared. Remember, m squared is 1 over m squared is m to the minus 2. So we're going to get a minus 2 multiplying and going to m to the minus 3. And that's what we're seeing there. OK, now we need to set that equal to 0. Normally it's quite good. We're not having m0, so we can multiply by m and we can get this. So this is the equation I think you should get. And when I see this, these are my thoughts that went through my head. Have we made a mistake here? Because look, we've got a quartic equation that we're being asked to solve. And so are they expecting us to factorize this? And the answer is yes, they are expecting that. That is what they are expecting. We haven't made a mistake. So it's not immediate. Looking at that, I can't spot a factor, but what we can do is try to make it a bit more clear. And one way we could do that is if we divide by a squared and see if we can get a bit of better handle on this. Okay, maybe you can factorize that. I'll be very impressed if you can. But anyhow, let's divide by a squared and see what happens. So divide by a squared, it's disappeared here. We've got ab becomes b over a, and we've got another b over a, and interesting, this is b over a squared. So just to sort of cut down on our mental bandwidth, let's just call this b over a. Let's call that k, some constant. Okay, because then we can write it like this. And now we are in a position that we can spot. Can you spot a value that we could put m to be that would make this 0? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. As soon as you, if you can spot something, what value of m would make this equation 0? We got any suggestions, Owen?
Nothing just yet. Nope.
Okay, keep thinking. What value of m would make this 0? That is because we've got something called the factor theorem, which you hopefully it's certainly on the AS syllabus. That would then enable us to find a factor. What value of m could you put in there that would make this 0? I mean, the things to look at is these. Is there something which, is there a value of m you could choose here which would make those two terms cancel out, and then these two terms cancel out? What value of m would work? So it's not a number, it's, I was going to say, not a number, it's a letter. It's a letter. What letter could I make m equal to? Any thoughts, or am I going to have to?
No, we've had one answer coming in.
Brilliant.
Yep.
What do they suggest?
So they said that m equals minus k.
Brilliant. Well done, whoever that person is. If you make m equal to minus k, this will become minus k to the 4, and this will be plus to k4. They cancel out. Similarly, if you make this minus k, you'll get a plus k squared, and then we're subtracting off k squared. So not easy. So very well done if you spotted that, and if you didn't, hopefully you can see it now, because that is our way through this. If we spot that, then we get a factor. We know that m equals minus k, so m plus k is a factor. If you remember the factor theorem, if you've seen it, if you haven't, treat in store, but that's what it tells you. If you substitute a value minus k, then m plus k is a factor, and then we can actually factorize it. We pull out m plus k. What would it need to be? It need to be m cubed times that, and we see we get those first two terms. Okay, then to get the last term, we're going to have that m. It's going to be minus k, and that gives us that bit. It's got to work out. Okay, now remember what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find the value of m, which would give us a stationary point. We did it by differentiating, and we got our equation. We've now solved that, and we've found a value of m. Now m is positive in our picture. I mean, the slope is negative, but the way they set up the equation, m was actually positive. So m equals minus k isn't the one we want. The one we want is this m cubed equals minus k. So there we go. M cubed is k. That is our thing, but we're not done yet. So this really should have a question, a sort of a health warning, algebra ahead. So what we now need to do is to substitute our value of m into our value of big D. So let's just go on to the next page. So hopefully your brains are not hurting too much. Let me click on that and see if I can get it. There we go. So here we go. So D, you remember, is the value of p squared plus q squared. Now, you could do this, but I'm not going to ask you to do it. What I'm going to show you is a way that sometimes helps, which is, okay, the temptation is, let's put in m, let's expand everything out, and it will all come out in the wash. Okay, that will work as long as you don't make any slips. What is sometimes useful is to try and keep the bracket together, so don't expand it out until you really have to. And so first what I'm going to do is, remember the thing we said, that p, if we multiply it by m, we get q, which is this second bracket. So I'm going to do that. Oh, here we are, I've got a comment. Before substituting, let's use that the second factor is m squared times the first one. If we multiply this by m squared, it becomes, move it inside the bracket, we get am plus b. So what that means is we can write it as 1 over m squared plus 1. When we multiply that out, the 1 gives us the second term, and the 1 over m squared, if we divide this second term, everything, the whole thing by m squared, we're dividing each term by m, so this becomes the b over m, and we get an a. So that is true. You might need just a little bit of time to think about it, just to check. Okay, so now we can put in m and see what we're getting. So if we put m is b over a to the third there, and we've put it here. So we've put m squared. So if it's on the bottom, we end up flipping the factor up the other way, and we've squared it. So where it was a third, they're now 2/3. We've got a to the 2/3, b to the 2/3 plus 1. This one here, okay, what's happened? We have put in our b over a to the third. So we've got a b to the third. We had an a to the third on the bottom, but it's cancelled with the a to leave us a to the 2/3. Again, I'm going to leave you just a second just to check that I'm telling the truth, that it's all good and proper. Okay, now we still don't need to expand the brackets just yet, because there's something again which is quite interesting between these two brackets, which is, if we divided this, the inside of this bracket, by b, then the b would become the 1, and divide by b, instead of having a b to the 1/3, we'd have on the bottom, we have a b to the 2/3. So if I divide the inside of this bracket by b, I get the left hand bracket. So why don't I pull out a factor of b squared like that, and then I've got, these brackets are actually the same. So that's nice, and so I can just write it as the cube. Okay, I can write it as a over 2/3, sorry, a to the 2/3 over b to the 2/3 plus 1 cubed times b squared. Okay, and we're just about there now, because if I multiply this b, take it inside the bracket, I'm going to have to multiply by b to the 2/3 inside. So it's going to get rid of the bit on the bottom, and we're going to get a nice symmetric expression there. That is fantastic. And finally, we need to take the square root, and we've got it. So that is the answer that we're after. So again, it's symmetrical in A and B. We like that. That was pretty hairy algebra. As I say, you may well want to watch that again and just check you're happy with it. But there is a lesson here. Had we expanded this out, this would be chasing a lot of symbols. This method, which works here, won't always work, but it has saved us effort. Okay, so I think we need a bit of a rest here. Now, so what I have done, if I can get it to move, is, what was that question really about? If we were allergic to calculus, is there another way to do it? So here we go. Now, normally the interlude is a complete relax. It's unfortunately not this time, because I've put some maths in it, as in maths to think about. But hopefully you'll agree that it's sort of interesting as well. So let me rapidly do this and give us time to do the questionnaire. So what was that question really about? Okay, well, an application of it is actually furniture removal. Okay, here we've got two chaps shifting their table. If you had a really valuable painting and you want to take it around a corner, then what you're interested in is this. So you've got a point here. If this corridor is width B, and this one is width A, then this point here has coordinates A, B that we had previously, and we are trying to get our painting round the corner, so with the sort of worst cases where it's right up against that corner, and we're sliding it out, and we're interested, okay, what is the shortest length for this red line as we slide it down? What's the shortest length for that red line? Because that will tell us how big our painting can fit. I've called it a painting because I didn't want us to do anything three-dimensional. I just wanted to say, so this question, even though it's a step question, it's also helping us work out how we can move paintings down corridors. Okay, let's say the minimum length line segment that we just calculated is the maximum length painting we can get around the corner. Okay, my doctor has told me to go easy on calculus for a few weeks. Can I still solve the question? Yes, we can set it up as a mechanics problem. Now, the reason you can do this is that equilibria in mechanics situations usually, well, always probably correspond to maxima or minima of energy. So if it's minimum, it's a stable equilibrium. Maximum, it's unstable equilibrium. Let's see how we could phrase this then. So here we go. So if instead of a painting we actually had a compressible piston, then as we're going to imagine the walls are perfectly smooth, and as we get it to the maximum compression, that will be an unstable equilibrium. Okay, the piston is trying to push out and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and as we move around the corner, when we get to the minimum length, it will be stable. As long as there's no sort of vibration, it will be able to stay there. If we nudged it, it would suddenly expand out again. So we can think about forces. Now, the walls are perfectly smooth. Maybe you've iced them or something. And so the forces are going to be acting perpendicular to the walls and also perpendicular to the painting. Now, I'm going to tell you a fact. Now, this bit, say, we're going too fast to take it in. I just want you to take an impression in, which is that we can change the problem from a calculus problem to a mechanics problem. We've got to find the equilibrium situation here. Now, I'm going to give you a fact. The situation is in equilibrium if the three forces which are acting all pass through the same point. And it changes the problem to a geometry problem. Now, given our time, I've drawn something in GeoGebra where we can slide the painting around, but I'm not going to do that because I just want to go for the finale. Okay, so the finale is once we've slid our painting to this, so you've got a force going upwards, you've got a force going rightwards, and the force from the painting is going up like this. And so notice we're interested with what we're trying to solve is the same problem. We're saying what angle, which is the same as saying what gradient, gives us the minimum. We know the minimum will be the case where the forces balance perfectly, which is where the vertical force and the horizontal force and the force on the wall from the line of force, I guess, on the painting, if they all go through this point. Now, it turns out we can do the math and find out what that is. So this angle at the top left is the same as the angle in the bottom right. And if we use our knowledge of trigonometry, we can say that this length here is A tan theta. Similarly, this angle here, again, we've got a little triangle, so we could work using trigonometry. We can find out that this is B over tan theta. Looks very similar to B over M, A over M. The final thing here, when this is at right angles, we get an angle theta there. And we can now set up our equation, which is saying that tan of this angle, when it's in equilibrium, tan of this angle has got to be B tan theta over A tan theta, which is the equation we had earlier. So m cubed, remember, was B over A. So we can solve it using mechanics. OK, I want to pause now and I want to give you the chance to feedback on today's session. So if Owen can post in the chat the link, it's always really handy to tell us what the pace was like, what the challenge was like, and stuff on clarity. I'll give you just a minute because we'll then be 30 seconds over, I'm sorry, but I'll give you a minute just to say that, and any comments you can pop in there. So could you just take a minute and then we'll finish up.
That should be in there now. Let me know if there's any issues.
Okay. Okay, so whilst you fill in the questionnaire, I'm actually going to do the wrap up bit. As I said, don't worry about the details here. The key surprising message is that sometimes we can use mechanics to solve optimization problems. It comes from the book I referenced earlier as The Mathematical Mechanic by Mark Levi, which is very interesting, or I think it is. Okay, so as per usual, if you've got any suggestions for what you want me to talk about in the middle of the session, can do that. We did have an extra question just to make sure that we didn't run out of material, and we didn't, so that's good. And that's the questionnaire. So the things we have seen in this session, drawing a diagram wins again. We need to draw a diagram. On the algebra, sometimes if you can keep the brackets together, it can be easier. It's certainly something to look for, because expanding out and then compacting back again is harder work. So that was a neat move. And also this thing that you can sometimes use mechanics to do minimization. It's not mainstream. It's just something mildly entertaining, or I thought it was. Okay, so very well done. Thank you for turning up. Thank you for feeding back, and look forward to seeing you next week as we're into the last 3 sessions. As ever, any questions, don't hesitate to email them through to my email or put them on the chat on Seren. But anyhow, well done for turning up. Wish you a very good evening.